Hello, government students. This is Mrs. Politsky, and I have notes for Chapter 9, Section 2, The Roles of the President, and Chapter 9, Section 3, The Styles of Leadership. So as we go along, you're going to need your handout to complete your notes. And we're going to start with Section 2, The Roles of the President. And we are just going to look at the top portion of that worksheet, what you see here in front of you. The bottom portion has some information that includes some vocabulary, and I think we've kind of addressed that in the vocab that you did as homework. So we're going to go ahead and begin. Up at the top here, we're going to talk about some of the different roles. And we're going to talk about the president as the head of state, president as chief executive, the president as the chief legislator, the president as the economic planner, the president as the party leader, the president as the chief diplomat, and finally the president as the commander-in-chief. So as we go along, make sure you fill in as the bottom portion here is going to have some of the descriptors. So we're going to start with the head of state. And that basically means that the president gets to represent the entire nation and perform ceremonial roles occasionally. So if we have a dignitary that might come to the United States, the president would formally greet that individual, maybe even invite them to the White House. Occasionally, a head of state might die, and the president might go to that funeral. And hence, that is kind of their role as the head of the state. Chief executive. Uh, this is when the president gets to influence the way the laws are implemented. So if you remember back, one of the prime responsibilities stated in the Constitution is that the president gets to enforce or execute the laws of the land. And the way the president does that is a result of this role as chief executive. They may choose to ignore certain policy, they may choose to enforce it in such a way that it has never been enforced before. Chief legislator. This is the president being able to present to Congress a legislative program or to suggest a budget. So if you remember back during President Obama's administration, he introduced what was known as the Affordable Health Care Act, which eventually became known as Obamacare. And that was a piece of legislation that was near and dear to his heart. He also had to suggest a budget for that. Chief economic planner. The president will prepare an economic report for Congress. They're also responsible for promoting high employment and production and purchases. So a president might choose to do some things as the economic planner to perhaps maybe encourage people to go out and spend money or to stimulate the economy. The party leader, because they are the head of their political party, the president gets to select his or her national party's chairperson. They give speeches, they can raise money, they can plan political strategies, especially if we are in the process of trying to elect a president. Chief diplomat, they get to direct foreign policy and determine how involved the United States is going to be in world politics. And finally, commander-in-chief, the president gets to share with Congress the power to declare war. They get to use military action to control serious disorders in this nation. All right, we're going to go ahead and take a look at Chapter 9, Section 3, talking a little bit about the leadership or styles of leadership of the president. And up at the top here, the qualities and skills that make a great effective leader. Some of these are to understand the public, ability to communicate, a sense of timing, openness to new ideas, the ability to compromise, and finally political courage. So under the ability to understand the public, the president will try to tap into the mood of the people and to use this mood for their benefit. If the nation has been going through an economic struggle, perhaps the president will try to tap into that mood and try to find ways to encourage people to feel better about the economy. Ability to communicate, the president, for the most part, can explain their policies, hopefully in a clear way, can inspire public support. And as a result of that, they are usually well received not only by the people but also by our members of Congress. A sense of timing, knowing when is the right time to introduce new policies. Sometimes a president may have to choose to wait. And a great example of that was Abraham Lincoln, who at some point early in his presidency had definitely wanted to emancipate the slaves. But he was kind of encouraged by his cabinet to wait until at least the Union had a victory. And so he waited until after the Battle of Antietam to introduce this. So that sense of timing, knowing when is the appropriate time. All right, openness to new ideas. President needs to be flexible. Flexible enough to seek new solutions to problems that arise. Sometimes you have to do things differently than maybe previous presidents. The ability to compromise. Can you accept part of something that you want rather than being forced to accomplish nothing at all? And sometimes presidents are willing to do a little give and take. And finally, political courage. Do you have the courage to make unpopular decisions or to risk alienating members of Congress or the people in order to do what you think is right as a president? Down at the bottom, we're going to talk a little bit about some of these questions here. Presidents receive special treatment. This special situation may cause them to become isolated from the people and issues because staffers have a tendency to tell them what they want to hear. Um, and that's probably the same problem that we have with all celebrities. The fact that finding someone who's going to be critical of you is very difficult if you fear that you might lose your position if you're close to the president or someone of power. Number two, presidential staffers find it difficult to tell their boss bad news. One presidential advisor revealed his strategy for imparting good and bad news by saying that he always wanted to be present when the good news was given and absent when the bad news came. Number three, not only do top staffers have easy access to the president, sometimes they also use their closeness to control other people's access. And we've seen this throughout really the 20th century. Number four, presidents sometimes have to use the tactic of executive privilege. This means that the president has the right to refuse to testify before or to provide information to Congress or to a court. We've seen examples of that during the Nixon administration and again during the Clinton years. Finally, number five, presidents have long claimed that executive privilege protects their communication with others in the executive branch and is necessary if they want to get frank opinions and advice from their assistants. All right, I hope you get everything written down.